text line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Introducing the McLaren 50/50, an online raffle in support of the not-for-profit McLaren Arts Centre. This monthly draw is organized with the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, giving you a chance to win big. www.mac5050.com.
Good evening, 007.
Tell me what you know of James Bond.
He'll light the fuse on any explosive situation.
Got your attention.
007 license to kill.
Is this really what you want? Living in the shadows? Always alone?
I don't stop to think about
it. This is Rogers TV.
Hello and welcome to this special edition COVID-19 Rogers Television program. My name is Carol Merton, and before I welcome our guest to the program, for those of you who watch, you know that I like to say a few words of thank you at the very beginning. So, first of all, as we move through phase 1, towards phase 2 of the reopening of our province, we celebrate the lifting of some of the public health restrictions, and we are hopeful that we can continue to move through phase 2 and into phase 3. Significant attention to details required to keep the public and our employees safe is very clear and obvious in the various businesses and services that are gradually reopening. They need our support to continue to follow these instructions and directions as we work together to prevent the spread of COVID-19. I know that I am learning to look down often to the floors to make sure I'm following the directional arrows correctly, and I have been told if I'm headed in the wrong direction. We know that the situation is fluid and it keeps changing as the number of COVID-19 cases continues to be monitored closely by public health. Without a doubt, we are all anxious to have our lives get back to normal, and we know that the new normal looks very different than it did a few months ago. We are anxious to move forward, and those in the front lines are weary. Thank you to all in our community who continue to provide the supports and services needed, to our public medical officer of health, the public health unit staff, all of our frontline emergency responders, essential and community support services for their ongoing efforts to keep us all safe. We will get through this together, and we will be stronger than ever. And on that note, I am delighted to welcome as a guest Jeremy Hedges, who is here to tell us about a company, a Canadian-owned company that has arisen as a result of COVID-19 and the need for PPE. Jeremy, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thanks so much for having me, Carol.
My pleasure. I'm wondering if you would mind sort of introducing your role within the company, telling us about the company. I believe it's called the Canadian Shield, and how it came to be, and then talk about what you provide. I understand you have something to demonstrate in a bit because I made you chase after it before the program. So I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. So I'm the founder and CEO of Inksmith. Originally, we were an education technology company. So we worked with K-12 school boards to bring things like 3D printers, laser cutters, robotics kits into classrooms to teach problem-solving skills. So that's where we started. We were a team of about 10. The region put out a call for manufacturers to step in and help, and at the same time we had a local doctor come by our office and let us know that the KW community was short about 10,000 shields, which at the time was a pretty astronomical number to us, because at that point we had made 0 shields. So kind of flash forward, about 4 days later, we received our medical device license to manufacture face shields here in Canada. We went from making, tens of shields an hour to hundreds of shields an hour. Today, we're a team of 270.
Wow.
We make about 1 million shields a week here in our Waterloo factory. And, there's no end in sight for us. We're working on a variety of different personal protective equipment manufacturing. To me, I think this has proven that Canadian manufacturing is not just viable, it's here to stay, it's the future. I think that the one positive we can take from all of this is that, that Made in Canada sticker is coming back in a big way.
So I interview a variety of individuals and groups on this program, what I'm fascinated to hear are the partnerships and the strategic networking that occurs as a result of COVID-19, and you've just described one. Did the doctor come and talk to you specifically?
Yeah, Neil Naik is the director of the KW Academy of Medicine. So he was leading one of the local programs for distributing PPE to some of the higher needs locations. So there's a lot of places that don't necessarily get. They don't fall under the Ontario Health or the LIN, so they're on their own when it comes to getting PPE. So this group led by Neil was helping to get things like face shields and surgical masks out to the people that needed it. And on the note of partnerships, we had a really cool community initiative to get all of this started. So eventually we named ourselves a Canadian Shield. It's a great geological pun, but the Community Shield was our initiative to use people's 3D printing capacity at home to help augment our manufacturing in our factory. So people would print out the headband, like the piece that sits here on your face, and then we would cut out the shield. So they would mail it to us, we would sanitize, assemble it, and go. That program, over a couple of months, we did 20,000 shields. So it was a really good way to bridge that gap while we scaled up our manufacturing. And we did end up spinning that down. But I mean, beyond just that community effort on the home, there were so many other local businesses and technology organizations in the Kitchener-Waterloo region that helped us out. There's a really amazing community, both here in the region and in Canada that supported us to make this happen. So humbling.
Yeah, and it is all about the community linking together. You mentioned about getting the license, and you said 4 days. I mean, that's amazing to me because of the need. So
normally getting your medical device license is a 120-day process. So obviously these are extraordinary times, and this would not normally happen. We put in an application and we received our designation 16 hours later. So it was a very, very, the first 2 weeks of this whole process for us it was like a lightning bolt. We went from 10 people on day one to probably 40 or 45 by the end of that first week. We signed a lease for a 50,000 square foot factory in Waterloo and, purchased equipment to start making this at scale. So everything happened really, really fast. It went from, hey, the problem is 10,000 shields for the region to, hey, it's millions for the province and tens of millions for Canada. So it's been a pretty wild ride for our whole team.
Yeah, I'm sure there wasn't a lot of sleep in those first few weeks while you got everything up and organized. So you had some 3D printers already, but where does the design come from? So, there's a design for a shield or for anything 3D, right? So explain to me how that works. And I understand you have a patent pending as well, is that correct? See, I have the information.
Yeah. So when we started, we were working with a Czech design, so a company that makes 3D printers of the Czech Republic. They made a design open source and available. It wouldn't meet Health Canada standards for a face shield, so we couldn't, scale the manufacturing of that. And with 3D printing in particular, it's very slow. So a 3D printer would take, 40 minutes to make one headband. So we needed to make something that could be stamped or laser cut. So first, I guess probably day 2, we made a laser cut version of that design, like a modified, version of that, and then we continued to iterate on it. I think we have a box of all of the different prototypes we ran through. It's something like 107 now.
Wow.
So it's an astronomical number because there's so many things to account for, right? Like you've got masks that have to fit underneath, and these surgical masks are nice and tight to your face, but an N95 is quite a large cut. So you've got to be able to fit that. People have wide brim glasses. So there's lots of little things that you have to deal with while also being compliant with the right sizing and adjustment and so on that you need to meet the spec. So it was an iterative process for us to design all of this. And it's kind of cool because that's what we teach in a classroom. So we use technology to teach design thinking. So essentially, assessing a problem, defining what that looks like, creating prototypes to solve it, and then step by step solving that. So this is what we teach kids, and we kind of went on our own journey and did it. So I think it's going to make for a really cool lesson plan when all of this is done as well.
Absolutely. So there are guidelines, regulations that you have to follow, you mentioned, within Canada. So there's not a worldwide standard for masks then?
No, the worldwide standards are pretty similar, but we have a CSA, like a Canadian standard for the face shields. There's American standards for the face shields. There's European standards for the face shields. All of them share the same common core, at least for face shields. That's not necessarily with all the other PPE products, but
right. I'm wondering at this point if you'd mind just holding up a prototype of what you're actually creating now, and just talk me through it. So
yeah, so a face shield is essentially a splash guard or a moisture barrier. So this is intended to be an extra piece that goes over another protective layer. So you've got a surgical mask or an N95, and then you've got your shield. So this prevents someone from, coughing or sneezing in your direction. Your eyes are fully covered. It, adheres to your head, so no matter what direction you're looking in. And if I put my chin to my chest, it won't knock it off. That's one of the requirements as well. So there's some, it seems simple, but when you have, users with glasses and different sized heads and you've got to make 1 million a week, it becomes a unique challenge to get into the manufacturing of this. What's unique about ours is that it's reusable. So the standard for face shields was you would have a big foam brim on the top, and you can't clean foam. You can't sanitize it. So every single shield would be I visit one patient and I throw it out. On one angle, we're a little too environmentally friendly to want to do that. And on the other, it's like, hey, if we have a shortage, I don't think we should be using a disposable piece of equipment if we can avoid it. So we made this design, fully reusable. I have my shield in the car, but I've had mine for a couple of months. They last a long time. Yeah.
So on the shield that you have, it's elastic at the back, right?
Yep.
So, and you're right, it looks different than the ones with the foam for sure. And it does certainly go around a bit further as well. Now you say it's reusable, which means you can disinfect it. Tell me how that happens.
So it's as simple as using like an alcohol wipe. So in a hospital, it's usually like a Cava wipe, it's called, which is like kind of an industrial grade. But if you had this at home, you could use Lysol or Clorox or any alcohol wipe would do, or even just putting it in soap and water and washing it that way. Yeah. So it's very simple to clean, and it's made out of PET. So it's the same plastic as like a plastic water bottle. So you could recycle this when it's done as well.
Yeah. So it doesn't appear to be heavy when you're holding it. So what would the weight of that be? Did you ever weigh them?
You know what? I know that we do, because that's part of our inline process. So when these shields go down the line, they get counted and inspected individually. So we check to make sure that there's no defects. So every shield is looked at before it goes out. But as it goes down the line, there's scales on the line, and we have a red or green light. Green light is that the weight is proper, and red light is that it's not. So I know that exists. I just don't know what it is offhand. The shields are quite light. Like, they're easy on your face. We've seen a lot of people buying them online on our website, and the notes that we hear is like, hey, I'm an asthmatic, or I have respiratory problems, so wearing a cloth mask is difficult. So a face shield is a nice alternative to them.
Yeah. For those who are treating patients or COVID positive, are your shields appropriate in a hospital setting as well as in a home setting?
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly designed for a medical application, but for people that are in the home or visiting stores, I think it's kind of a nice way to visit someone and socially distance, because you can actually see their face. You miss that like human communication when you're seeing everybody with one of these on. It's really hard to, like even going to see my parents socially distance. It's so much nicer when we can all have wearing a mask.
Right. So it can be used in combination with a mask, or it can be used without as well. One of the recent experiences that I've had, which as a healthcare professional and a service provider myself, I had to care for someone who is deaf, and the only thing that he could do is lip read. And the issue was he could not lip read because I had to have a mask. So your concept of seeing people is also important for those who may have other challenges around communication, and to be able to have that visual cue and be able to see the lips is important as well.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
So the machinery that you had before, you were able to modify what you were able to use, but you had to get additional machinery as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, we kind of we went through a series of cycles. So when we started, it was 3D printers and laser cutters. Then it was just laser cutting, and that was slow. So it wasn't quite enough. So then we moved to what I would call like a manual press. So you touch two buttons on each side, and then it punches down like a cookie cutter through several sheets of plastic. So we had about 20 of those manual presses, and at that point we were doing 10 or 15,000 on a really good day, and it was very manual. Every single part was punched out by hand and then had to be cleaned and inspected. It was tough, and we've been running basically around the clock since March 20th. So it's just been it was a very intense ramp up. We got really lucky. There was a company in Vaughan, Ontario that had what are called traveling head presses. So essentially it's like that same, stamp cookie cutter machine, but it automates the material feeding in and punches as many as 40 times a minute. So infinitely faster than what we can do as people. And that's what's, allowed us to get to this level. I mean, at part of our scale is the sheer number of people that we have working for us now. We've been able to put a lot of people back to work, and that's humbling and wonderful at a time like this, because there's so many other companies that don't have that opportunity, and we're providing meaningful work with good living wage jobs. Our minimum here is $18 an hour. We provide a meal for every one of our staff. There's boot subsidies. There's all sorts of things that we do to try to make this a good place to work, because I think the world's a tough enough place as it is. But all that to say, we kind of went through a series of different technologies to get to the scale that we are. And the same thing, it's like the design thinking process, albeit in shorter steps, right? It's like, hey, our first challenge was getting to 10,000. Then it was getting to 300,000. Then it was getting to 10 million, and we've moved through these technologies to get there.
So the employees that you have now, do they have to have special technical knowledge? Do you do on-the-job training? I mean, how did you find those who work for you now?
You know what? We do have some millwrights and some technical folks that are working on, maintaining and operating some of those heavy machinery, like some of that heavy machinery. But for the most part, we don't have, technical folks on the line. It's a lot of, fairly easy work, I would say. We got really lucky though. Like we had the right people coalesce around us in the very early days when we were just getting this started. Like we didn't even know this was going to be a business. Like that wasn't the plan. The plan was that we were going to, make and donate 10,000 shields, and then that was going to be it. And at that time, the right people came in. Like a friend of mine was in logistics and had just been laid off. So he came in and helped us with our supply chain and logistics. Another fella I knew came in and helped us run like the people operation. Like all the right people fell into place at the right time. But we've had 6,000 applicants. So there's no shortage of people looking for work in the Waterloo region. And we hope to keep hiring. I expect that in the next few months, as we continue to grow into other product categories, we might hit as many as 500.
Excellent. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the online portal and how people can order. It's entirely up to you if you want to discuss price. This isn't a program where we need that necessarily, but it's up to you. But sure. I know that the wonders of Skype, we're learning as, it's different than being in a studio and interviewing someone. But the great thing is that you can provide to anyone these shields. So, and I know PPE and being able to get PPE adequately is critical for a variety of people. So tell me about your portal.
Yeah, so we have a Shopify store that anybody can come on and buy a shield. We'll be launching sales of other things too, like the reusable cloth masks and pretty soon surgical masks as well. But we're running a buy one give one on the face shield. So I think that the starting price for 2 shields is $9.95 each. So $9.95 per shield, and it's a buy one give one. So for every shield we sell on the website, we donate one to long-term care.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a fairly simple system. They can purchase online in packs of 2, 5, or 20, and it ships next day.
So that was one of the questions I had from the information that I had received, was how do you decide where to donate this equipment? Because if more people across Canada, the province order, is there opportunity for donations to happen in a variety of locations?
For sure. And that's what we're doing as well. Like we're reaching out to some larger organizations like the Red Cross and so on to get a scan of their network. I mean, we've grown so fast, but we don't necessarily have this, this big giant, network of folks that we can just reach out to on a dime. So we've reached out to some bigger organizations to try to see who we can partner with to find a home for this stuff, because in the last 3 weeks, there's about 3,600 orders on the website for something close to 20,000 shields. So we get to donate 20,000 shields across Canada, which is pretty cool. I know that like some of these have been going out on an ongoing basis. We do get a lot of requests on the website from organizations that need it, but yeah, we're definitely open to other opportunities there as well.
So speaking of which, you've talked about 2 other products that you're either developed or the reusable face masks. So those are cloth masks, are they? Or yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's just a cotton mask. So a reusable cotton mask for someone going to the grocery store or out in the public. I would expect that cloth masks are going to become mandatory in the next few months. I think that the main deterrent there is that currently we don't have the supply to make that readily available to everyone. But once we get to that point, I think that it's been proven in other countries that if everybody's wearing masks, we're going to see a very significant decrease in transmission. So we've we've got a setup now where we'll be able to do 10 or 15,000 of those masks a week. So not near the volume that we're doing with face shields, but doing our best to help anyway.
Yeah, which is excellent. And those can be cleaned again so that they're not a one-time. And then surgical masks, are you moving towards those as well? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're having some equipment flown in. I hope to be running in the first week of July, and that's building in a little bit of padding for things to go wrong, because they tend to. But when we're finished, we'll be able to make around 120,000 surgical masks a day. So we'll be one of the biggest surgical mask manufacturers in Canada, which is pretty cool. And I think that the future is that we make all of this stuff here. We need to make isolation gowns, we need to make surgical masks, N95s, face shields. All of these pieces need to happen in Canada so that the next time we have a pandemic, we're safe. We don't have to scramble to find resources. We don't have to weed out what's fake and what's good, or potentially what doesn't even exist in some cases where people are scamming. Like we definitely need to invest in this infrastructure, and we hope to lead the way.
Yeah, and I think certainly as we move through this, it's been a learning for so many people, and especially about having resources within Canada to be able to help Canadians for sure. Do you think you'll ever ship overseas? In other words, instead of waiting for us to get the supplies from overseas, will you be doing the opposite?
I think so, yeah. I think in the short term, there's a huge demand in Canada, and I think that most of our production will be occupied by Canada, certainly for the surgical masks. For face shields, we've already bid on a tender with the United Nations, and I expect that we'll be doing some shipping overseas for that. I think our capacity well exceeds what's needed for Canada. But I think the future, when the world doesn't need so much all at once, we're going to be in a position where we can export and we can be a competitive, globally traded manufacturing business out of Canada. And I think that I hope that that's what's coming back across industries for Canada. I really think that we should be making all of our essential goods here. It's going to be better for the environment. It's going to be better for our economy, and it's going to future-proof us from anything that comes in the next 2, 3, 10 decades.
Yes, yeah, we've certainly learned the importance of that for sure. So much change in a few months. Where are you going to be a year from now? Any idea?
Yeah, I think that in a year from now, we'll be, manufacturing millions of surgical masks, the gowns. I think that we'll have the capacity to take care of all of the critical pieces of PPE for Canada. I hope a year from now we're through COVID and we can start thinking about what the future looks like, and like you said, looking at export. But I think as a company, as an organization, and certainly myself, we have aspirations beyond PPE production. So where we start, I don't know, but I think that we hope to be a big part of what that manufacturing future looks like in Canada, and taking key critical steps to taking on things like climate change, because that's the next big, challenge that we all have to get through together.
Yes, for sure. So we have about a minute left in the program, and I'm wondering if there's anything I haven't asked you. I also would like for you to say the actual address for people to go online to order the face shield, if you wouldn't mind. It may be on the banner, but I can't see it on my Skype screen. So. Okay,
no problem. Yeah, so the website is CanadianShieldPPE.ca, and that's where people can find updates on what we're up to and or buy shields for themselves or friends or family. I like you said at the very beginning of the show, I just want to thank everybody in our community that stepped up to help. I think that I've never felt so proud to be Canadian. I think we've really done a lot for each other, and I think we have a really renewed sense of community, and I hope we carry that forward. So thank you to everybody on the front line.
Excellent. And on that note, our program is finished. I want to thank you, Jeremy, so much for joining us today. I wish you every success on your exciting venture. And I want to thank our viewing audience for tuning in to this special edition COVID-19 Rogers program. Take care, stay safe, care for each other. Thank you.